If someone tells you that you have the opportunity to win a gold medal and become a world champion in your sport, you'd probably take that, right? Well, not many athletes this year are taking advantage of that opportunity despite having qualified and securing a spot at the World Indoor Championships this year in Nanjing, China. Well, there's various different reasons as to why, and it's got me thinking about, is this a good thing or is this a bad thing for the sport as a whole, and specifically indoors, where we do see various athletes across the spectrum, both extremely talented, extremely successful, but also other athletes on the lower rung who are still kind of vying for their spot, still trying to prove themselves and make a name for themselves. They're all potentially going to be impacted by, certain decisions that are coming up for the next month. But just came off day one of the USA Indoor Championships, and there's a few athletes who actually won their events, but are choosing to completely forego their opportunity to compete at the World Indoor Championships. And there's 5 specific reasons as to why I think some of these different athletes are choosing to skip a chance for a gold medal indoors. First of all, Grand Slam track. 2025 is going to mark the start of the first season for Grand Slam track, and the first meet is going to be held in Kingston, Jamaica from April 4th all the way to April 6th. The World Indoor Championships will be going down all the way out in Nanjing, China on March 21st to March 23rd. That only gives athletes 2 weeks between the end of World Indoors to the start of Grand Slam track to be able to wind down and then kick things back up to prepare for GST. Well, a few athletes at USA's, they actually competed, they won their events, and they're choosing to skip World Indoors in favor of Grand Slam track. Masai Russell in the 60-meter hurdles. She came away with the 60-meter hurdle win in 7.74 seconds, taking down a strong field of Grace Stark, Christina Clemens, Aaliyah Armstrong, among others. But she is foregoing the World Indoor Championships because she is going to be a racer in Grand Slam track. Again, that first race going down on April 4th in Kingston, Jamaica. You also have Nikki Hiltz. They won the 3,000 meters here in New York City at the USA Indoor Championships, but they're also foregoing the opportunity to compete at World Indoors, despite being a World Indoor silver medalist from last year and having an opportunity to potentially upgrade that to gold. Nikki Hiltz is also going to be in Grand Slam track running as part of the short distance event. And I understand why both of them would skip out on World Indoors. Think about Masai Russell in the 100-meter hurdles in Grand Slam track. She's going to have to go up against Jasmine Camacho Quinn, 2021 Olympic champion, Serena Samba Mayela, 2024 Olympic silver medalist, Akira Nugent, 2024 world leader and 4th fastest woman of all time in the 100-meter hurdles. And you're also going to have some challengers like a Danielle Williams, 2-time world champion in the 100-meter hurdles and defending world champion from 2023. That field is extremely stacked. So if I'm Masai Russell, I want to make sure I'm 100% prepared to compete against those women in the 100-meter hurdles and the 100-meter dash. Remember, it's 2 events to potentially win $100,000. When World Indoors, they're not paying $100,000 like Grand Slam track is, or even second place where it gets you $50,000, third place it gets you $30,000. Plus, they're already contracted to race at these competitions and probably getting paid. That makes sense for someone like Masai Russell. Same thing for Nikki Hiltz. Nikki Hiltz is going to be running in the short distance group for Grand Slam track, and they're going up against Jessica Hull, 2024 Olympic silver medalist in the 1500, Mary Mora, 2024 Olympic bronze medalist in the 800, Drebe Wateji, 2023 World Championship silver medalist. That field is stacked when talking about Grand Slam track in the short distance. So Nikki Hiltz, they want to make sure that they are prepared as possible in the 15 and the 800 to compete and again, win potentially $100,000, maybe $50K, maybe $30K, whatever it may be. Going to World Indoors, it just doesn't present that strong incentive for an athlete to go all the way to China and then potentially come back and maybe not do as well in Grand Slam track, specifically that very first one. So that's one of the reasons that a couple athletes have noted. The other side of it is it's a very, very long season. First off, you have the World Outdoor Championships in September all the way out in Tokyo. And yes, we know that athletes are able to structure their seasons appropriately to make sure that they're peaking at the right times, whether it's for World Indoors, for their national championships outdoors, and then the World Outdoor Championships. But if they want to make sure they're 100% prepared, especially if it's an athlete that maybe hasn't gotten onto the podium yet, an athlete that maybe hasn't been able to make a team yet, they want to make sure that they're ready as possible throughout the entire season to be able to push themselves all the way to September. Look at someone like Hobbs Kessler. Hobbs Kessler, yes, he made the team last year to the Olympic Games in the 800 and the 15, only ran the 1500, of course, at the Olympic Games, but he probably is thinking long-term of, listen, that 1500 is extremely stacked between Josh Kerr, between Jakob Ingebrigtsen, between Jared Naguse, between Cole Hawker. I want to make sure I can insert myself in that competition. And these one-off races, yes, I'm running fast, but I want to get on the team and I want to make myself get on that podium. maybe running the World Indoor Championships, despite getting a medal last year in Glasgow, maybe it's just not part of the plan, and he wants to make sure that his training blocks are set and he's ready for September. Also, we have to think about how we've had back-to-back World Championships and Olympic Games since 2021. 2021 in Tokyo, 2022 in Eugene, 2023 in Budapest, 2024 in Paris, 2025 going to Tokyo. All athletes across the world have been on 100 to make sure they can not only qualify for their national teams, but also get on the podium and compete with the best of the best at these Olympic Games and World Championships. That is going to take a significant toll on athletes every single year to make sure that they're on 100. It's not easy. And if you're going to make a choice between a World Championships outdoors or a World Championships indoors, maybe you're going to take the time off from indoors and just train through it to prepare yourself for outdoors. Again, even connecting back to the idea that the World Outdoor Championships are very late in the season. So back-to-back Olympic Games and World Championships, that's definitely going to be a factor here as well. Also, you have to think about the fact that we've had so many World Indoor Championships along with that as well. Remember, Nanjing was supposed to go down in 2020, but because of the pandemic, it was postponed year after year until now in 2025. But in between that, 2022, we saw the World Indoor Championships in Belgrade, Serbia. 2024, we saw the World Indoor Championships in Glasgow, Scotland. Now in 2025, we're seeing the World Indoor Championships in Nanjing, China. Athletes, again, combined with their outdoor schedules, combined with back-to-back outdoor championships, they're probably going to make a decision on if they actually want to go to another World Indoor Championships or preserve themselves and their bodies to make sure they're not risking any injury, to make sure they're as healthy as possible, to actually perform when it counts and when it matters the most. Last thing is the travel to China. This probably isn't the biggest factor, though some athletes like a Grant Holloway has expressed the fact that, China is very far out and having to go there, come back, maybe is not the most ideal, but that also is going to be a factor, whether it's for athletes who are competing in Grand Slam track or just for athletes who are going to be competing at certain meets early in the season and they want to make sure that they're ready for that outdoor season. Traveling all the way to China for a couple days to maybe break up their training, maybe that's not the most ideal strategy for, again, their long-term success in 2025. So all these different factors have come into play and have led athletes to make the decision to completely skip indoors. You're talking about Masai Russell, Nikki Hiltz, Katie Moon, Hobbs Kessler, and probably a couple other athletes from the United States who competed at USA Indoor Championships but are not going to be going to the World Indoors. And I'm pretty sure that there's other athletes around the world who probably are going to go to their national championships and then potentially go to European championships if they're in Europe, but then might not go to the World Indoor Championships. We already saw someone like Femke Bol. She's going to be skipping the entire indoor season, only competing at the European Indoor Championships in the relays because it's at home in the Netherlands, but she's not even focused on World Indoors. And she is one who has always run indoors year after year, frequently racing in the 400, and she always has said that she loves it, but this is another year that she is just choosing to skip it, maybe because there's been so many back-to-back championships and she wants to make sure that she's ready for outdoors more so than any other year before. Now, granted, you do have someone like Kashane Thompson who has expressed interest in competing at the World Indoor Championships, despite maybe not being the typical 60-meter sprinter, despite being, potentially injury prone as some, have indicated throughout his career. But I do like to see someone like Kashane Thompson, but we're not going to see someone like Femke Bol and a couple other athletes who are choosing to just skip the indoor season. But these are just a couple factors. The other thing I did want to know is, should we be worried about the trend of athletes kind of skipping World Indoors, maybe this year, maybe into the future, or is this an actual good thing? If you have some of the top stars and the top athletes in our sport of track and field skipping out on what World Athletics, the governing body of the sport, deems to be a major championships, if they're skipping out on that, then that kind of devalues the championships and then potentially devalues the entire season as a whole. Again, we're not seeing Masai Russell, the Olympic champion. She's not going to be going to the World Indoor Championships. Katie Moon, the former Olympic champion and reigning Olympic silver medalist, she's not going to be going to the World Indoor Championships. You also have a ton of athletes who are completely skipping indoors altogether. You're talking about Noah Lyles, ran 2 races and is done with indoors. Rai Benjamin ran 1 race and is done with indoors. Julian Alfred ran 300, 400, probably not running any more indoors. Sha'carri Richardson, she's not running indoors at all. Christian Coleman, the GOAT of the 60 meters, he's not running indoors. There's so many athletes across the world who are choosing to completely skip the indoor season, and then of course the indoor championships, that it maybe devalues indoors as a whole. Now, to be fair, you do have athletes like a Grant Holloway, who I have full respect for, because he chooses year after year, despite having achieved everything in the sport aside from the world outdoor record, he chooses to go to world indoors. He chooses to go to world outdoors, Olympic Games. Every single championships, he's looking to get another gold medal. But every athlete is not a Grant Holloway. Most athletes are thinking about, how can I maximize my potential at the World Outdoor Championships? How can I maximize potentially my earning potential as well? How can I maximize my exposure and different opportunities? That's not going to happen indoors. So I don't know, it might devalue and again, make indoors a little bit less attractive and essentially just shift focus towards the outdoor season where quote unquote everything actually does count. And the other thing is, it kind of creates a paradox where, okay, great, you have a lot of these top athletes not competing indoors and they're choosing to skip the World Indoor Championships. Great. That opens up a door for a lesser known athlete, someone who's still on the rise, someone who doesn't have a big name, someone who's still kind of, working their way up into the conversation. They maybe get an opportunity to compete at the World Indoors. But then because the big names are not competing, no one is even watching, or most people aren't watching. Yes, me, you, we're going to be watching World Indoors, but some of these lower names, they're not going to get that exposure that they would have got if they were running up against a Masai Russell, if they were running up against a Noah Lyles, if they were running up against a Julian Alfred, right? There's reasons why these big name athletes actually do attract a lot of viewership to the sport, and we do need it. But if we do see them completely skipping indoors, then it's going to probably devalue the entire season as a whole a little bit, and then push those names who are just trying to even make themselves into the conversation, push them even farther down where we're not even going to know as much about them. So these are just my thoughts, but again, it's really interesting to see how many athletes are choosing to actually skip the World Indoor Championships. But let me know what you think. Is it a good idea for some of these top athletes to completely skip World Indoors, or do you think they should actually take advantage of the opportunity and compete in Nanjing, China this year? Or, it's completely up to them. Let me know what you think. Be sure to like the video. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.